everyone. Hello. Hi to everyone who's joining the webinar. Good to see you. We'll get started in a second. Fabulous. We've got a few that have joined us so far, and I'm sure some more will trickle in. Well, welcome tonight to this webinar where I'm going to be speaking to the lovely Gurjinder from Fertility. And what we're talking about today is all about fresh and frozen egg options, and actually talking about some of the new options that Apricity are now offering. And I often host these webinars for Apricity, and quite often we're doing fireside chats and conversations about lived experiences and stories. But actually today is a much more of a practical insight, a Q&A where you can really learn more about the process, what's involved, and a little bit more about what Apricity offers. So do feel free to pop any questions that you have in the Q&A box throughout tonight. I've also got lots of questions that have already been submitted, which I'll be posing to Gurjinder. And firstly, I think it's probably best if we introduce ourselves. So just to go first, for those who don't know me, I'm Becky Kearns. I'm also known as Defining Mum. I am a mum to three girls, all thanks to egg donation. And I'm really passionate about opening up conversations, sharing my story to hopefully inspire others and validate some of the complexities and the different feelings that you can have when on this journey. So, and I'm delighted to be with Gurjinder tonight, who I know through Apricity and I have met. And it would be lovely, Gurjinder, if you can just give us a little intro to you and sort of how long you've been at Apricity
Yeah,
and what your role is.
absolutely. Hi everyone. Thank you for having me, Becky. So I am Gurjinder. I'm the egg donation specialist and fertility advisor at Apricity. I speak to our recipients and intended parents about what we offer, what we do. I also undertake the matching of our donors to our recipients and intended parents. So I put all the matches together. Um, I have been with Apricity for over 2 years. It'll be coming up to 3 years next year. Yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, so you've got a very special job, really,
I
in when it
do.
comes
It's
to
a
matching.
beautiful
And
job.
yes, yes. And I know from my own experience, kind of going through that process, and actually, if anybody's watching tonight who is probably feeling quite overwhelmed, where do I start? What do I do? There's so much information out there. Hopefully, tonight will give a little bit more clarity as to what you can expect when going down this route. Just to firstly kind of say at the beginning of this, we are not medical professionals, so we're not able to answer any medical questions. However, I will be doing a Q&A with a doctor next month. So if you wanted to ask some more questions that are more specifically medical, then you can do that at that point. But what I firstly wanted to talk to you about, Gurjinder, was what do Apricity offer? I know through the egg donation program, historically, it's been very much about one-to-one matching and that
Yeah.
process, but actually, relatively new is the opportunity for frozen eggs. So tell us more about what are the different options with Apricity.
Yeah. So we are a virtual fertility clinic and we follow virtual pathways with particular clinics in London and Manchester. We offer kind of IVF treatments, IUI treatments, diagnostic testing, and then obviously egg donation as well. So that's with fresh and frozen egg donors. Um, we offer kind of the full matching service. All of our donors that we onboard and we recruit ourselves. So we don't bring them in from other agencies or egg banks. They're all spoken to and onboarded by our team and our advisors. We offer kind of a full service where we undertake the matching. So we recruit the donor, undertake the matching to the recipient or intended parent. And then we take them through the full journey as well, where they can proceed and go ahead and have their embryos created and also a transfer under the care of our consultants and our nurses. So the person is, the individual is looked after by our team. So it's a very personal approach. The actual procedure itself would take place at one of the facilities that we partner with, but it's all orchestrated and the protocols, etc., are done by our medical team.
Fabulous. So let's talk about the kind of the one-to-one matching first.
Yeah,
And obviously, I'm sure there'll be questions from people around, okay, how does
yeah,
that work? Like, how do you kind of obtain from the recipients what they're looking for and
yeah,
then actually go about matching? Because I can imagine it's quite a complex process
yeah,
where everybody's got different kind of feelings and thoughts about certain characteristics
yeah.
and
So we offer a
backgrounds,
very
etc.
kind of bespoke match service where we really take into consideration, the recipient's features, characteristics, their hobbies, their interests, educational achievements. If that's important to them, we might get a recipient that says, that's not important. I just want a donor that has, the same hair color, eye color, ethnic background, and height as me. So we can be as specific as the recipient would like to be with the match, or as broad as they'd like to be. When we put matches together, so I do the matching and it's all done visually by myself. I would usually have a picture of the recipient and then a picture of the donor, and that's how I do the matching. A full face profile picture, a side profile picture as well, a full body picture, and I try and find a match that really resembles and looks like the recipient.
Mhm.
When we send through matches, so the recipient receives all of the characteristics of the donor, such as hair color, hair type, eye color, height, build, skin tone, ethnic background. The recipient also gets two pictures of the donor. So it still remains anonymous, it's still non-identifying. They're pictures of the donor under the age of about 5. If they're wearing like a school uniform or something, we crop them accordingly so they cannot be identified. But it's just to help visualize what, the donor looks like. And sometimes recipients compare the pictures to their own when they're of a similar sort of age to see if there's similarities. It's really, really special, really nice that they get to see these pictures. And then they get a personal profile. So the personal profile is beautiful. It's really lovely. It's usually can be quite lengthy sometimes, but it includes kind of the reasons why the donor is donating, the reasons why they've come
Mm.
forward and why they want to donate their eggs, their hobbies, their educational achievements. We have kind of prompts, and it's really lovely. It kind of says things like, what's your greatest memory of when you were, in your childhood? What makes you happy? What makes you sad? So you really get a feel of what your donor's like.
Mm.
And it's really special. And that whole document, along with kind of the characteristics and the pictures, are sent to the recipient to review.
Yeah, and I kind of listened to this, and obviously my own experience. For those who don't
Yeah,
know, I went through this process sort of 9 years ago now, and we went abroad, and I didn't know that there were these options for
yeah,
matching and having that level of detail. And we were matched on simply green eyes, brown hair. I wanted someone who's quite petite, and that
yeah,
was it really. And now I'm a mum and I've got our amazing girls, I just so wish I had more that I could give them. And I have kind of spoken with others who have had that more information. And it's such a special thing to be able to read that to your child when they're a bit
yeah,
older and just be able to fill in a few gaps and almost like paint a bit more of a picture of this person. Whereas I
yeah,
think for me personally, that's something I've struggled with. Although I think recognizing also at the time that when you are making this decision to use a donor and you are being matched, it that can be a really complex process as well of like thinking, or they must have this, this, and this because it's really key to me. But actually, then starting to think about, okay, what is nurture? What is
yeah,
nature? Does a having a university degree mean that it's all of these different things?
yeah,
So there's a lot to consider, and I would say that if you are going through the matching process and you are struggling or you want some extra support, I know through Apricity, all recipients get 6 months access to Paths to Parent Hub, which
yeah,
is the support platform that I created. And there's lots and lots of resources on there to really kind of, you listen to psychologists talking about, okay, why might we struggle with the choosing the donor, or understanding genetic loss and kind of fears around attachment and bonding. And so I think it's really important to understand that as well. And
yeah,
I know for you as a team, you quite often direct people to Paths to Parenthood where there are kind of certain worries or fears that probably come out when you're speaking with
yeah.
recipients all the time.
It's a really lovely community, and we get a lot of recipients who are already, members of Past Parent Hub, and they already say, I'm already familiar with Becky, I already know. And they say it's a really nice support network. You know, it's just nice to know other people are going through a similar sort of thing. Because sometimes, you know, in fertility, especially with egg donation, sometimes it can feel quite lonely, like there's no one else that really knows about it. But I know that, you know, there's a really nice, really lovely community out there that, you know, recipients
Yeah.
can be a part of.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it is a whole new path to parenthood that you've got to get your head around. And
It is.
I know for many people, actually, that point of being matched or it can be quite a kind of a
Yeah.
triggering moment of like, oh, this is all real, and I've got to make it feels like the biggest decision you've ever made. And
Yeah,
so there's a lot of trust put in your hands and the team to
there
kind of make
is.
this match. And I think that's why it's really helpful for them to understand kind of what's the process behind it, what goes into this, and how does it work. And we've actually just had a question through that said, can we ask for the donor's parents' full medical history? And can we ask if the donor is willing to meet the child when he or she turns 18 years old? So yeah, maybe the meeting, the ask if they're willing to meet. I assume that comes out in the donors kind of when they meet with the counsellor and they go through their own implications counselling.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's all discussed when the donor has the counselling. So the first thing that a donor does when they're onboarded is they complete some medical questionnaires, and that's to give us information about their medical history and their family medical history. So we gain information as far back as obviously the donor herself, her parents,
Mhm.
siblings, grandparents, aunties and uncles and cousins. We don't give a family medical history report to recipients when we do matching unless there's anything to note. Okay. We wouldn't onboard a donor if there was a risk of any kind of genetic abnormalities or any kind of medical issues in the future to any child born from her donation. But we don't, as standard, send kind of a document. And all of the information the donor gives us is verbal information, and we have to trust that, you know, they're telling us truthful and up-to-date information. We're very lucky. Donors do often go off and investigate as much as they can before coming back to us, so they understand how important it is to kind of give us all the information. If there's kind of a diagnosis in the family, a cause of death, and they're unsure, bless them, they sometimes it can take a few weeks, but they do say, you know, I'll go off and find out. I understand how important it is, but it's all reviewed by our medical team, the questionnaires, once they've been completed. Once the medical questionnaires are completed, and if they're reviewed and the donor is accepted, the donor can then move forward and she does an AMH test, so an anti-Müllerian hormone test, to give us an indication of her egg reserve. Once that's taken place, she then has a scan, so an antral follicle count scan to check her follicles. If we're satisfied with those results and the consultants reviewed them and deemed suitable, she then moves forward and has the implications counselling session, which is so, so important. So that's where it's discussed kind of the anonymity of their donation, you know, how they would feel if in the future a child wanted to make contact with them. So if there was any kind of concerns at that stage, if the donor didn't feel comfortable, or if the counsellor herself thought, actually, I don't think she's ready to kind of go ahead with this at the moment, she would not then be matched to anyone. We would let her think about it and wait.
Yeah.
But all the donors that are onboarded are they are informed about the full process, and that from the age of 18, a child can make contact and find out about them.
Yeah, and I remember I've interviewed a number of donors that have come through Apricity, and I'm always
Yeah,
blown away because I still it's so hard to put into words what they are actually making possible. They are kind of
yeah,
allowing someone like myself who was unable to have a child to actually become a mum. And what I'm always kind of really aware of is how they are so invested in wanting the
yeah,
recipients to have that baby and that success. And just hearing the stories of when they find out that their donation has resulted in a pregnancy and how that's made them feel. I remember speaking to one who was a teacher, and she was
yeah,
sobbing in the class in the staff room, and she just found out that their recipients were pregnant, and she
yeah,
was just so happy. So that is also a really lovely thing. And I know that when I've also spoken to donors, that they always seem very open and are really hopeful that the child
yeah.
might contact them in the future, not to intrude anyway on the recipient's relationship, but just
No,
to curiosity and to say hi and to kind
yeah,
of fill in any gaps. And I think that's really nice to know as well. So thank you for answering that. And I think just going back to kind of the matching process. And obviously we've
Yeah,
spoken about matching where it's more kind of one-to-one matching, you find someone who's right, but we're talking now about having the option of kind of matching with an individual who will go through the IVF process, and you will
yeah,
potentially have fresh eggs versus actually now there are options to have frozen eggs that are already
yeah,
collected and they're kind of ready to go. How does the process differ with both of them, and kind of what's the difference really between the fresh process and
yeah.
the frozen?
So all of our frozen egg donors, so all the frozen eggs and the donors are onboarded and recruited in the same way that our fresh egg donors are. So exactly the same process of the questionnaire, AMH, the scan, and the counselling. So there's no difference in the onboarding of the donors. Um, Obviously, with frozen eggs, the eggs are readily available. So, although we do have a match time that we give for both fresh and frozen eggs, so we give 3 to 6 months for a Caucasian donor, so that's white British, white Irish, white European, and for Black African donors, it's 3 to 6 months as well. We've had a really good influx of Black African donors,
Amazing.
and then yeah, it's really really good. And then 6 to 12 months for any other ethnic background, for both fresh and frozen. However, with frozen eggs, because they're already there, they've been collected. We could potentially match quite quickly, depending on the requirements of the recipient. So we might have someone that matches them almost instantly. So again, there's a match time, but again, eggs are already there. We know that the eggs are of mature quality with the frozen eggs. So we already know the maturity of the eggs, and you're guaranteed a number of eggs. So the minimum number of eggs that we bank is 4, and the maximum is 11. So you will always know, you'll always be guaranteed that number of eggs. So it's really good because there's no kind of anxieties around, I don't know how many eggs I'll receive, I'm not too sure, with kind of a fresh match. But again, we do offer kind of guarantee packages with our fresh eggs. But with frozen, the benefit is definitely that you know how many eggs you're receiving. With kind of the success rates for kind of fresh and frozen, because of the vitrification and technology, it's improved so much over the years, and fresh and frozen eggs are similar and very much the same in statistics. With frozen eggs, the full survival rate is around 80 to 90%, which is really good. It's really high. With fresh eggs, the balance of mature versus non-mature eggs is also around 80 to 90%. So these risks kind of balance out. They're exactly the same, which is really good.
Yeah, that's really useful to know because I wasn't aware of that before. We've had a couple of more questions that have come
Yeah,
in, which I'll come to now. So, someone said, at most, how many eggs can the donor donate in the UK? And there are family limits when
yeah,
it comes to donor conception in the UK. And I know slightly different, well, actually quite a difference in process between sperm
yes,
donation versus egg donation as
yeah,
well. So, what have you found, and kind of in terms of the
yeah.
donors that donate with apricity?
So donors can consent to creating up to 10 families, okay? Sometimes it can get confusing. Sometimes people think that's just 10 children born from their donation, but it's 10 families, then it can be multiple children within those families. Sometimes we get donors that say, they only want to consent to creating 2 families or 3 families. We try and limit a donation with apricity for no more than 4 times, although very rare, and it's a very slim chance of this happening, but we don't want, a child born from donation to meet a future partner who could potentially be a half sibling. So, we try and limit the donation to no more than 4 times with apricity, but it's all of their donations are registered with the HFEA. There's no way they could exceed that limit. So when a donor goes to a clinic to donate their eggs, it's all kind of checked, and we obviously have to trust that they're telling us that they've not exceeded that limit. So yeah, it's all regulated by the HFEA as well with the 10 families.
Yeah, yeah. And do you find some donors will just donate once, some will just do what's kind of the average for your donors?
Yeah, so I would say majority of the donors do donate once, but we've had a really good handful of donors who have come back 2 or 3 times as well. They've just, they're so lovely, and they just really, really want to just keep helping people, which is so beautiful. It's so nice. We've had a really good handful of donors who've done it 2, 3 times with us, I would say. And it's really good because they already know the process and they're familiar with it. They're like, right, I know exactly what I'm doing. Sometimes they tell us, they're like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. And it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's really, really good. And, we've created really lovely relationships with these donors as well. And they then go and tell their friends and family members, and they then sometimes become advocates for donation. They want to kind of join us and they want to help spread the word, which is incredible. It's really, really good.
Yeah, that's amazing. And yeah, do you find when it comes to donors and kind of bringing them on board that they're a certain type of person? Like what sort of kind of age range and what type of person tends to come
Yeah.
forward and donate?
So the average age of donors, I'll say, is about mid-20s, but it does vary. So all donors must be between the ages of 18 to 36. So they must be under the age of 36. They have to have a BMI of under 35 in order to be considered as well. We get a handful of donors who are blessed. Quite recently, we've had a few donors who are nearing 35 and they're just like, oh, I only just found out about egg donation. I didn't know about it, but I really want to do this before I turn kind of 36, so that I can come through. So average age, I'd say, is mid-20s for our donors, but it really does vary. We have some donors who, have got children of their own and they've completed their families and they said, right, I love my little family and I want to help someone else, have this dream and be happy like I am with my little family. And then we've got some donors who have said, right, I have found out about a friend or a family member who's going through fertility struggles. I've researched kind of IVF and then come across egg donation. And again, it's just something I want to do. They give blood. They're just altruistic people, and really, really lovely. And we're so lucky and grateful that we have these donors that come through.
Yeah, and like I say, I always get really emotional when I hear from donors and speak to
Yeah,
donors because it is quite literally life changing
yeah,
what they do. We've had another question through
yeah,
around which clinics you work with. So someone said, I
yeah,
believe you only work with certain clinics for fresh egg matching. Is that the same for frozen eggs? So I know you have partner clinics for the actual kind of
yeah,
transfer process and collections and things like that. How does that
yeah.
work?
Exactly. So with our frozen eggs, so the eggs are stored at either Manchester Fertility, so that's the clinic in Manchester, and the London clinics are King's Fertility and IVF London. We have some, although we partner with kind of other clinics as well, so Aria Fertility as well. We also partner with the Bridge Clinic. We can move those eggs so they can be couriered. So there is a slight fee to courier the eggs and move them across. It's all done through a company that we partner with, and we can arrange for the transportation of the eggs if need be.
Fabulous. So that there are options
There
and
are
kind of different.
options,
It
yeah.
tends to be London and Manchester are the main.
London, Manchester, the main ones, yeah. But the eggs cannot be moved to a clinic that we don't partner with, so it has to be one of the clinics that we do partner with.
Yeah.
Again, if embryos want to be created with the frozen eggs, that's also an option. So embryos can be created at a clinic that we partner with the frozen eggs, and then the embryos can be moved to a clinic of the recipient's choice, and it doesn't have to be one of the ones we partner with, just so long as the clinic is happy to receive embryos created with donor eggs from another facility.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I assume that you can provide a list of all the clinics that you work
Yeah,
with when you start speaking
yeah,
with potential
exactly.
recipients. Yeah, I'm just looking at the questions. So if anyone else has any more questions, do get them through. I want to make sure that we try and cover everything. Um, I've had a few questions around success rates,
Yeah.
and particularly for those in their 40s. Is there anything that you can tell us around kind of success rates and how people can find out more about success rates for their particular kind of
Yeah.
age group and
Yeah,
scenario?
definitely. I would recommend having a look on our website, so the Fertility website, where you can filter kind of own eggs versus donor eggs, and then you can put in kind of an age bracket there as well. Or you can take the treatment predictor, where you can see your own individual estimation of success with donor eggs. But as I said before, the statistics with fresh and frozen eggs are very, very similar. So really similar, and I would recommend going onto our website just to having a look and a play about with the filters, because you'll be able to get some really good results from there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you. And someone has also just asked, what does your BMI have to be able to receive an egg donation? So obviously you mentioned that donors have to be below a certain BMI
Yeah,
level. Is there also a level for those who are recipients?
yeah. So the clinics that we work with, they do usually have BMI limits. I believe some of them are 38 and under, and some are 35 and under. But again, dependent on which clinic, we can always check and make sure. but there is usually a slight limit, but we can always work around that and speak to the particular clinics as well.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. Another question that we had through, which is probably one I can speak to, but also if you've got any
Yeah.
thoughts, Gajinda, someone's asked, is it better to go abroad where donors are anonymous? And obviously that was my own experience. I've already touched on this already. And I think back 9 years ago, there wasn't really anyone else talking about this experience. And it's very much you hear someone who's been abroad, or you go with that and you think, oh, there's massive
Yeah.
waiting times in the UK, which I do think is a bit of a myth now because there are so many different options available. Um, and so there are reasons why people may go abroad and there are options there. But I think personally, from my own experience, the one thing I don't regret anything about going down the route of egg donation. It's the best thing I ever did because I've got my girls. The one thing I wish I did have was more information for them and that ability for them to have that option to be able to meet the donor. And that's where with the UK law, it definitely allows that. So it allows for that level of anonymity that I think many people will want
Yeah.
to have to almost be able to go down this route, and also for donors as well. But also it allows that child to have the option to find the donor and also for the
Yeah.
donors to be open to that. And so I think it's a really good thing. That that is available here, and actually, as I've mentioned before, having that level of information and that kind of personal profile. And I've
Yeah.
spoken to people, recipients who have said, oh, I've just really connected with this donor. It just, I could kind of see elements of me through what she was saying and answering the
Yeah.
questions, that it could almost give you that kind of extra level of confidence. But also at those points where when you do start talking to your children about how they came to be and their special story, that if they ask, oh well, tell me more about her, or what did she like, or certain traits you might see, you might be able to have more answers for them. And so
Yeah.
I think there are definite benefits to doing this kind of as an open ID as opposed to anonymously.
Yeah.
Obviously, completely understanding that for some people options are more limited. And yeah, I think it's one of those things where I think more and more countries will come towards the open ID route, and we're seeing that already. But I don't know what your thoughts are, whether there's anything you'd add to that, Katrina.
Absolutely. I think also with the regulations and how it's regulated here in the UK as well, it's so important. And that the donor can't exceed the 10 family limit, and again, the bespoke matching, every single recipient I speak to, they love the idea of the bespoke match. They say that, they've obviously there's been a lot of exploring and they've looked at other agencies and egg banks, and they say, a lot of agencies just offer kind of hair color, ethnic background, height, and eye color, as you're familiar with, Becky. It's very
Yeah,
limited.
basic
They
level.
said,
Mm,
yeah, and they said that they love that it's a bit more of a bespoke and in depth. And we have calls with our recipients and video calls where we have to meet them virtually, like we are right now,
yeah,
and we get to know them, their personalities, exactly what they're looking for. So yeah, I think it's really important to have a match and someone you really can feel connected to,
yeah,
rather than just having kind of the basics. And
mm,
yeah, that's really, really
yeah.
important.
And I think also it's worth bearing in mind that the more particular you are about certain things that might not be as common, or you
Yeah,
want a certain set criteria, that that might mean a longer wait time versus. And
yes,
so I think often when I've spoken with people, it's almost about having the things that are absolutely non-negotiable.
yeah,
We want our donor to have, but also having those things that are nice to have, but where's your red line, and to help you
exactly.
almost make those decisions. Because at the point a match comes up, you're almost in a position where you go, right, I need to make a decision at this point in
Yeah,
time. And so I always think it's really, really helpful. And that's another thing I think within Paths to Parenthood, to just have other people who are like your friends and families don't really get if they've never had to make those decisions, but to have other people who've been through that process to really
yeah,
go, oh, this donor's come available and I'm feeling this and I'm feeling that. And everybody's going to be individual, but I do think it really, really helps to have that community as well.
yeah,
Um, few more questions. I've got lots of questions coming in live, which is brilliant. Someone has asked, what is the upper age limit for going through treatment with donor eggs?
yeah.
What's that in the UK?
So we treat women up until the age of 50 and then also over 50 in exceptional circumstances. So all of our recipients under the age of 45, so every single one of our recipients have to undertake some diagnostic test before they go ahead for donor egg treatment with us. So it's some blood tests, it's a pelvic scan, a consultation with the doctor, and a counselling session. For all of our recipients between the ages of 45 to 50, they have to have slightly more extensive blood tests done. Again, it consists of like a diabetes check, Hep B. So there's quite a few of them. Sorry, I can't name them all right now. And then they have to undertake a scan as well, consultation, and a counselling session. Then recipients that are over the age of 50, again, have to have the same screening done, but also have an obstetric review. And we can arrange all of those tests and investigations for whatever age range the recipient is. So the initial test investigations have to be done first, just to ensure that, the results come back okay, they're okay to carry and then to deliver. So yeah, it can be over 50 as well in exceptional circumstances, but at the moment there's no age range as such. It's all kind of on a case-by-case basis, dependent on results and diagnostics initially.
And that makes sense that from a safety
Yeah,
perspective, you need to make sure that that person is able, kind of in that
yeah,
position to go through treatment. No,
exactly.
thank you. Another question is, have you seen any change in the number of South Asian egg donors in the past couple of years? And is Apricity doing anything to encourage people of colour to make donations? So I know you
Yeah,
said from the kind of Black African
yeah,
perspective, you've had more kind of what are Apricity doing to try and kind of
yeah.
encourage that diversity?
Yeah, we've actually had a really good number of South Asian donors come through. We still give the 6 to 12 month match time just to manage those expectations. We have an amazing marketing team, so we do market egg donation. We speak about egg donation. We do kind of webinars like this,
The
for
donors.
donors specifically to kind of to voice egg donation to some cultures see it as a bit of a taboo subject. So just to be
Mhm.
open and a bit of a safe space, and this is why we do kind of webinars and with past donors as well, to speak about it, to open up about it, and for them to feel comfortable coming forwards with it. Our marketing team, we cannot ever look like we're poaching or enticing donors to come forward. So, we're getting a lot of trouble for it from the HFEA. So, they have to be doing it altruistically. So we do speak about egg donation on Instagram and Facebook. There are kind of big platforms where we get a lot of engagement from potential donors, word of mouth. But yeah, we've had a really good, I would say, a really good influx of South Asian donors. As I said, I would definitely give the 6 to 12 month mark for the matching, just to be realistic. I don't, sometimes it can happen in a matter of days or weeks, but yeah, we've had a good number of South Asian donors come through, I would say.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And I know that often is an additional challenge for those from kind of those different ethnic communities
Yeah,
where it's almost like another hurdle to overcome. But then you find out you need egg donation and then you've got to find
yeah.
a donor that is suitable. So no, that is really good to know. Another question that's come through is around, does Apricity send eggs to clinics abroad? I assume that you
Unfortunately
work with the
not.
clinics in the UK.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
abroad. No.
Yeah, and obviously it's working within the UK law and jurisdiction and everything
Exactly.
else.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Embryos can be created with frozen donor eggs and they can be transported abroad so long as the donor consents to their gametes, so for their eggs to be transported to another country. If it's more commonly with surrogacy because of the
yeah,
as everyone knows, the lack of surrogates in the UK, the issues around surrogacy in the UK. So there's an option to transport the embryos to another country, just so long as the donor consents. And obviously, there's a lot more that's involved with the importing and exporting, etc. But the embryos is an option, but not the eggs.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that, and I guess it's kind of a case by case. Ask the question and find out when it comes to
Exactly.
the embryos.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another question that has come through is around um coping with genetic loss, and this is probably one I can definitely speak to. But is that something you kind of hear a lot when you're speaking to recipients? Because obviously you're
Yeah.
trying to get them to say what they want,
Yeah.
and it still might be a process of them going, I'm not even sure whether this is what I want, but this is my only way of becoming a parent. It is so complex, isn't it, at the point where
Yeah.
people are making these decisions.
It's so overwhelming. I speak to so many recipients on a daily basis who have been through numerous cycles of their own, numerous tests and investigations, and they are exhausted. They're so tired of that journey, and I always say, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and I always point them in kind of your direction. You've got a really good support system, you've got really good resources for them to kind of feel comfortable with. I think, as I said before, I mentioned before, they feel a bit alone in the journey, that there's no one else out there going through a similar sort of thing. And I always say, you might feel alone right now, but there is a big community behind you who are, who are able to support you, who are going through a similar sort of process as you. Yeah, and it's one of those things where I spend a lot of time. Sometimes I get really emotional with it because it's it's heartbreaking when you speak to your recipients. And I will say, take your time, and we offer counselling sessions as well for them to speak in depth with the counsellor about kind of the implications, of the donation, and how they're going to, cope with everything in the future, with, disclosing to the child, explaining to the child. But as I said, there's great support systems out there,
Yeah.
like yours. So
Yeah, there's a lot more today and a lot more kind of open conversation about
yeah.
this. And I do a lot of conversations around dealing with genetic loss with Julianne Boutaleb, who is a perinatal
Oh, she's
psychologist who I
amazing.
work with. She's incredible, and
Yes.
she does a lot of work within Paths to Parent Hub. I know Julianne and I came in to almost to talk to the team at Apricity, didn't we, about kind of
Yes.
what does it feel like as a recipient?
Yeah.
What are you going through? And I would say it's really important to remember that it's a grief that
Yeah.
you're kind of dealing with, and grief can kind of rear its head at different times. And
Yeah.
often, when things become a bit more real, it may pop back up. And that's why it is so important to have that kind of support around you.
Yes.
And I just want to kind of take a moment to mention that if you are kind of in those early stages and you're looking for support, you're looking for community, myself and the Paths to Parent Hub team, including Juliana, hosting our next in-person event, which obviously Apricity are sponsoring in November. So it's on the Saturday, the 2nd of November. There are a few tickets left, and throughout that day, you will hear from a panel of parents who have been there from a variety of different backgrounds and family forms. You'll also hear from a panel of donors, and there'll also be a panel of donor conceived people who are now grown up, talking about their own journey and how they were supported and what we can learn. But then there's also sessions from Julianne, who will be delivering a session all about kind of dealing with genetic loss and the worries around attachment and bonding. And then we've also got a researcher who's going to be sharing all kind of what does the research tell us about donor conceived families. And so if you want to kind of get to know all of that and be in a room that's full of compassion and with lots of other people who are all at the same stage, it's a really great opportunity. So I just wanted to share that because I'm really looking forward to that. And every time we hold that event, it's actually in London this time. It is so powerful, and there really is that power of connection. And obviously, City will be there as well if anybody wants to have a conversation at the same time. Um, just to say, if anyone else has got any questions, please do let us know. There is one more question on here that we haven't covered yet, and it's more around what questions to ask when you go to your appointment. And are there any things that you think, Gajinda, that should be asked if you're kind of thinking about frozen versus fresh, and when you're kind of
Yeah.
going to have those conversations, what questions would you expect to be asked by a recipient, really?
Yeah, so I usually get kind of obviously the statistics. It's really important. Recipients want to know what the statistics for fresh versus frozen. As I said, very similar, and worth checking on our website as well. What individual statistics would be based on age, etc. And then I often do get as well with the number of kind of the eggs. How many eggs do you think, how many embryos do you think we'll get from a particular number of eggs, etc. That's quite a common one. And we, with 8 fresh and 8 frozen eggs, we usually say, with 8 fresh, 8 frozen, you usually will have good quality between 1 and 2 embryos. So good quality embryos between 1 and 2, which is really good, especially if it's exactly the same for fresh and frozen. Costs. Costs are really important in finances. So
Yeah.
again, I can go through this individually if anyone wants to speak to me afterwards, and we can always book in a call. But the costs do vary, but we've got all-inclusive packages. So people want to know, what's included, how much extra would
Yeah.
you charge for this? But the cost for frozen eggs, so obviously the minimum you can
Yeah.
purchase is 4, the maximum is 11. The cost varies from about £11,000 to about £15,000 roughly. That includes our recruitment and matching fee, which is £3,300. That's the first fee you would have to make payable to us for us to find and recruit your egg donor. It includes kind of the thawing of the eggs, fertilization, and embryo creation. It also
Yeah.
includes the embryo transfer
Yeah.
and medication. So
Yeah.
it's a
It's
very
the whole.
it's a whole package. We like to be as transparent as possible with our costs, and we offer that all in one package just to be kind of upfront, so you know exactly what you'll be paying from the get-go. So that's usually quite an important one for people. They want to know, exactly what exactly are we paying. And then, we do have finance options as well. So we've partnered, some you might have heard of Gaia, and Gaia is quite familiar with a lot of people, but they offer kind of installment options and insurance-based financial guarantees. And then we've also partnered with a company called Auto Comply. They're a finance broker, and they provide flexible payments, 0% interest loans, which is amazing. Really helps with the processing, paying upfront fee. So yeah, finance options, costs are really, really important as well. The matching, again, everyone wants to know, how exactly do you do the matching? Sometimes people say, is it done by a computer? And I say, no, it's done by me, done by my eyes.
Yeah.
It's done visually by a person, but that's always really reassuring for recipients that there's someone there doing it.
Mhm.
I know sometimes, and sometimes with our frozen egg bank, we have had recipients who have said, so do we get access to all of your egg donor profiles? And I always say, no, I still do that bespoke match service. I still offer the matches to you. So I think it's a lot more comfortable for the recipients that there's someone there actually doing it, and they are picking a perfect match for me. So yeah, they're kind of the main questions I always get around kind of the
Yeah.
packages and the frozen eggs.
Yeah. That is useful because I've just noticed that was another question around the prices. So you've covered that one off as
Okay.
well. The just in terms of just from your experience, I mean,
Yeah.
are there scenarios where you've matched and something doesn't feel right? What happens if a recipient goes, oh, no, it doesn't feel quite right? Can you keep looking at how does that work as
Yeah.
well? I mean,
So what I usually do is, with the matching kind of process, I send something called a soft match first. Okay, so we can send a maximum of 4 donor matches to a recipient within their registration with us. So the registration is for 1 year. So within that 1 year, you get a maximum of 4 donor matches consecutively, obviously not at one time. If the recipient was to decline a first match, I'll obviously take the reasons why to ensure I'm not offering, another match in the future that's similar to that one. I usually send something called a soft match first. So the soft match is, the characteristics of the donor and the reasons why I've put the match together. Why have I put this match together? Why do I think this donor is a good fit for you? If the recipient declines the soft match, it doesn't count as one of the 4 matches. Okay. If they say yes to the soft match, they say, yes, actually, it sounds like a good donor for me. I think it would be a good fit. I would send the pictures and the full profile, and that counts as an official match. I wouldn't just send any donor to anyone. It really is, I always kind of sit there with like my eyes to the screen really close, like, do I actually think this is a really good match? I speak to the team, and it's always such a celebration when the match is compatible, when the recipient says, yes, I think this is a really good match for me. And we all sit there, we have a little celebration, and we're like, yay, it's a really good match. But no, it's a really in-depth process. I absolutely love doing the matching. It's such a beautiful job to have. It's
since it's a real privilege as well, because you are
such a
kind of really
privilege.
facilitating that
Such a
making the
privilege.
family.
Yeah, and there's always, whenever there's kind of a live birth at the end of it, I am a mess. It's such a big celebration, but it's always so lovely. It's so nice because, I put my heart and soul into all the matching. I'm like, this has to happen. So yeah, no, it's really special. We really get to know kind of the recipient, really get to know exactly what they're looking for to make sure the match is perfect.
Yeah. And how do you communicate with recipients? Because I know there's an app, isn't there, that
We have an app,
it's
yeah.
access. Yeah.
Yeah, the Fertility app is amazing. So, what happens is when we can communicate via email, phone call, texting as well. We have video call like this, so we do Google Meets quite often as well. And the app is amazing. So once I've kind of matched a recipient to a donor, and they need to go through for the process. To create the embryos, they are assigned an advisor, so an advisor from our Fertility team. The advisor looks after them for the duration of their journey. So they keep them up to date on the progress of embryos, book them in for any appointments if need be. But we can liaise all through the app as well. It's so easy. We have extended hours on the app as well. So kind of out of hours, and it's always kind of someone from the team will pick up. So what if one of the advisors is not available, the designated advisor is on annual leave, there will be another advisor kind of assigned to the recipient, which is really good. It's really good communication. And with technology now, everyone loves an app. Everyone likes convenience. So it's literally just like WhatsApp. It's really good. And kind of protocols are uploaded on the app, treatment plans, medication, etc. It's all put onto the app. It's all in one place, which is really good.
It's useful to know. Yes, I remember about 9 years ago, there wasn't anything like that. And I would
No,
literally be on the phone for
I
hours
know.
trying to get through to the clinic, and it was an absolute
Yeah.
nightmare. So that's good
Even
to
like
hear.
reminders for appointments and everything, it just
Yeah.
pops up, things up, which is really good. It's so convenient.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good. Thank you. And just that we've had one more question through to say, how
Yeah.
many active donors does Apristi have at the moment? How large is your database? So,
Yeah.
yeah, just in
So
terms of numbers.
because we offer the bespoke match service, we I can't give a number, but because we offer a bespoke match service, this is why we give kind of the 3 to 6 month match time for Caucasian and African donors, and then we give the 6 to 12 months for any other background. So we onboard donors every single day. So we're onboarding them continuously. So it fluctuates. So, at one time we might have 10 donors in one day, but it goes, it really changes day to day. But I can't give an exact number, but this is why we give a match time to managers' expectations, because that bespoke match is what we offer, and we need to be realistic with the timeframes as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's really helpful. Thank you.
But we do
Um,
have, with the frozen eggs, we do have a good number of frozen eggs in our bank at the moment that we could offer out, dependent on characteristics.
Yeah. Yes, I suppose you could have a good number, but actually, if it doesn't meet somebody's characteristics, then there's still that matching that
Exactly.
needs to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's useful to know. I don't know whether anyone else has any more questions. Now's your time to ask them. I'm just going to pop in the chat just a link if anybody did want to find out more about the event on the 2nd of November. There's information in there. Like I said, there's a few tickets left, and I don't know whether Holly from Simplicity wants to put any information in there about how to book a call, but what is the best way to get hold of you? I know there'll be an email going out tomorrow after this webinar with the recording and with more information, but
Yeah.
anything you want to share, Gajinda?
Yeah, the best thing to do is to book a call with me. It can be a Google Meet, it can be a telephone call. It usually lasts about 45 minutes, and we go through kind of all the process, the options, the cost, the match times, but in detail, if specific ethnic backgrounds, and I can give kind of a bit more of an idea of what exactly the match time would be. We can go through kind of finance options, and I can go through the finance, with you over the phone. So yeah, I would recommend booking in the call. You can find a time on my calendar that suits. And yeah, I'd love to speak and give some more information.
Thank you. I think we've just had one more question through. So it was mentioned previously that of 8 fresh/frozen eggs, there would then be 1 to 2 good quality. Why would someone choose a 4 egg minimum package if the percentage
Yeah,
of good quality seems lower?
yeah. So sometimes people want to buy additional packages, additional egg packages. So as an example, if someone purchased 8 frozen eggs and there was another package of 4 frozen eggs from that donor, because the maximum at one package that we can create is 11. So they might want to purchase additionally a 4 egg package as well. So that is an option to add on. some recipients, they might say, I affordability.
Yeah.
We obviously are transparent with our statistics and what the outcomes would be, but affordability, sometimes people can't afford to purchase certain packages. So that's why we've got kind of a range, so people can kind of add on additional packages if they want to.
Yeah. And I suppose it is so hard, isn't it? Because there's no, as much as this like science and technology is so amazing, I think one of the biggest challenges of it, and having been through IVF myself, and is that there are no guarantees with a lot of these things, and a lot of it you kind of are basing on statistics and kind of age range and quality and all of the other things. And
Yeah.
just because you mentioned before around the kind of the guarantee, and what is the guarantee there that in terms of purchasing a certain number of either frozen eggs or kind of fresh
Yeah.
eggs? How does that work?
Yeah, so we've got with the frozen eggs, so you know how many eggs that you're purchasing and you're receiving. We've also got with fresh eggs, we've got an 8 egg guarantee package with 8 fresh eggs. So that's another option. And then we have kind of 1-to-1, which is only with fresh eggs, where you don't know how many eggs you're receiving from the donor. We say that an average is usually 16 to 18, but it could be more and it could be less. And that's obviously just with the fresh eggs. But with the frozen eggs, you know how many eggs that you're getting, and you know that they're of mature quality.
Yeah. And numbers can be really confusing at times, can't they?
Yeah,
Because I remember going through IVF myself and I was only getting sort of 1, 2 eggs maximum at a
yeah,
time. And then hearing about stories and having a one-to-one donor myself, thinking, oh, I'll be looking at double figures at least in
yeah,
terms of the numbers of eggs. And we had 8 actually. And then I was like, oh, 8. And it seems so strange. I was so grateful, but I expected the numbers to be higher, but we had 5 embryos from that eight
yeah,
those 8 eggs. So it's all very much an average, isn't it? And
yeah.
it is really
It
hard.
is.
And I think that does make it more difficult because you are still kind of going on an uncertain process. And I think that's the challenge as well, isn't it? It's very human and lots of these things happen. Someone has just also asked, does the package include PGT testing?
No. So
No, I would have thought
PGT
that would have been
testing
extra.
can, yeah, it can be added on, and it is an option if you wish to go for PGT testing, but it's not included as standard.
And then another question, just wondering if we have 2 frozen donor embryos remaining, what's the thaw rate? Would both thaw properly? I don't, so that's almost embryos that are frozen that are being thawed to then be transferred. I'm not
Frozen.
100% sure whether we've got the rates to hand, but I know with the
It,
doctor next month we should be able to get a clear
yeah,
answer.
that might be a question for the doctor.
Yeah, no problem. We can always pick that up because we are going to have another one in just a few weeks' time. I can't remember the date off the top of my head. Um, but thank you so much, Gajinda.
You're
It's been
welcome.
amazing. Thank you to everyone who's been on the call and has asked so many questions and kept us on our toes. I think we've covered quite a lot in the last sort of nearly 55 minutes. So thank you. And yeah, if anybody has any more questions, I think your diary is now in the chat. So if anyone wants to book in a call with Kajinder,
Yeah.
you can find me over at Defining Mum on Instagram. Always happy to receive messages. Sometimes it takes me a little bit longer to respond, but I usually try to respond to everybody. And also Paths to Parent Hub is there if you need it. And like I say, in kind of if you go along with the Fertility, you will get 6 months free access to Paths to Parent Hub, which is the whole community, all of the back catalogue of different webinars and supports that's available. And if you are free on the 2nd of November, we would love to see you at the event. So yeah, someone has said, thank you so much for this session. Lovely to hear from you both and for all the work you do. So thank you. It's great to hear that it's been helpful. Any final words, Gajinder, before we go?
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for everything that you do. And I look forward to speaking to some of you. If you wish to book in a call, I'll be happy to speak.
Fabulous. Well, thanks for joining, everyone. Have a good rest of
Thank
your
you. Have
evening.
a good
Take
evening.
care. Bye bye.
Bye.